I've been playing outdoors since I was a kid, standing by the front door at around 2 years old, hollering, side, 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 trying to get my mom to let me go play outside. Now, after 30 plus years working in the outdoor business, I'm dropping insider conversations every week with the brand leaders, guides, marketers, CEOs, and others to make the outdoor industry a $1 trillion juggernaut that drives product innovation, revenue, and public policy for everything outdoors. I'm Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to episode 448 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, brought to you this week by Thrive Market. Think organic groceries are too expensive? So does Thrive Market. Get 30% off your first order and a free gift when you join. Go to ricksayes.com/Thrive Market and get your membership going today. This week I'm talking with Chris and Kelly Kibbee, founders of No Limits Scuba in Tempe, Arizona. If you're just discovering scuba or looking to go professional, No Limits Scuba sets you apart on your path by offering the highest quality and standards for safety and fun. Become part of PADI, the world's most popular and widely recognized scuba organization. Give Chris and Kelly a call today, 480-625-0591, and get started on your scuba certification. Hey, Kelly and Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to chat with you guys again. It's been a while. We first met at the Phoenix Travel Show, where I was standing there with no visitors for my presentation, and I think you guys were up next behind me.
Yeah. And I think we had like maybe 4 or 5, so, you know.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't anticipate. That was a much older group of attendees than I anticipated. Well, I should have thought of that, though, being Arizona and being travel, right?
Yeah, and the time frame, too, it's right kind of in the middle of what I would call snowbird season for us. I also think the marketing wasn't super great for all the demographics and some of the potential outcome that they could have had there.
Yeah, I didn't go to any other ones. One of them, I think I told you guys, one of my fellow podcasters from the Outdoor Writers group also went to the one in Colorado somewhere, and he said it was the same kind of thing. It wasn't that great.
Oh, really?
Attended. Yeah. And, podcasting, I think, is pretty unique still. As much as those of us that have podcasts think it's, widespread, it's really not, especially in the outdoor space. So,
sure.
Yeah, we're still growing it. So let's start with No Limits Scuba. Tell us about your first scuba trip before we get into the business side of it. When and where was it? Kelly, you want to go first?
Sure. So my first scuba trip was right after my initial scuba certification. That was in Cozumel, Mexico, back in 2016. And Cozumel is just mind-blowing. Cozumel has crystal clear blue water, like really epic reef walls and huge coral formations. And there's just a ton of marine life. You get eagle rays during certain parts of the year, tons of turtles, sharks, and like an amazing amount of colorful fish on the reef structures. And it's known for its consistent currents, so it makes most of the dives drift dives. So basically you just kind of hang out and let the current take you on a journey. So it was pretty magical for a first trip.
And what's an eagle ray? That sounds like a pretty cool animal.
Yeah, eagle ray is a type of ray, but they're larger in nature and they're spotted, and so they're just really, really pretty. And they only come through during certain times of migration season. They're gorgeous.
Wow. How large is large?
What would you say, Chris? Maybe like 5 or 6 feet for a wingspan?
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say with some of the bigger ones, like in the 8 to 10 foot wingspan, like the big older ones. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I would equate them closer to like, if you've seen a manta ray, like in terms of sizing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I've seen those down in Baja. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about Chris? What was your first scuba experience? Sorry.
Originally I got certified in California. That's where I grew up. So I grew up diving up and down the coast of California. Spent the majority of my life in Orange County and was diving in Laguna Beach quite a bit. So I spent the majority of my childhood and the kind of like younger adult years diving right out just in California. I didn't really travel much, but
like right off the beach there? Sorry, off the beach?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Didn't know you could do that.
Right off the beach. So in Laguna, there's tons of really good diving out there. But really the best diving is Catalina Island. So that's always like been a special place for me. And kind of like, I think about it for me as like, it's a trip, you jump on a ferry. It's not like being anywhere else in California for the day.
Right.
So that was my first trip. And then after that, I started diving when I moved to Phoenix, I started diving a lot more international travel. And then after that, Cozumel was kind of like my first international trip back in 2015.
Cool. It's still amazing to me that Phoenix is such a hot dive spot because you think of Phoenix in the middle of the desert, but I guess people travel to do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'd say like Phoenix is one of those places that you live for all the places you want to go to.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Unlike Bishop, where we have so many great things right here, I don't travel as much as I used to because it's great to stay home.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it was when I lived in Southern California. Like I could jump on a plane and go somewhere, I could go to Baja, or I could go down to the Caribbean, or I could just drive 15 minutes and be at the beach.
Right. I did quite a few backpacking trips on Catalina Island. I led a group that circumnavigated the island, I think 2 trips when I was working for Adventure 16 way back in the day. It's a great place.
Yeah.
It's such a cool little town. It's so interesting if you go during like on season versus off season and what you encounter.
Yeah, it's super busy. It's surprising. Yeah. So how did you guys come up with the idea for a scuba school?
Chris, no, take that.
So for me, the idea to become a scuba professional with the potential to own a shop was a dream my dad had always had, and he had always wanted to fulfill. But having me and my sister and just life getting in the way kind of kept him from doing that.
Right.
And so that was kind of like we came up, or we had the ability to come into this dive shop. So the dive shop had been in business since 2013. And the intent on the whole shop was to make scuba accessible for everyone. So Kelly and I have been co-owners for the last 7 years. This is my full-time career. So I've been in the scuba industry now for 11 years.
Wow.
And then for Kelly, this is her fun-time gig.
Yeah, this is my fun time job on the weekends to escape, it's kind of the stressors of my corporate America job.
Right. What's your corporate America job?
I work as a product manager, so I do software development for some large organizations.
Gotcha. That's got to be pretty stressful sometimes.
Oh, it can be. So blowing bubbles underwater is my happy time.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. I love that. And where does the name No Limits come from?
So the name No Limits kind of comes from the idea that there shouldn't be any limitations on your potential, whether that be simply achieving the goal of getting your initial, certification, mastering some of the recreational training opportunities that are available, or, finding incredible places to explore and dive, or even like delving into the realm of scuba and sharing your passion with others on the professional side. So it kind of expanded from that. And, I know Chris has thoughts on that as well, but that perspective for me is kind of the origination of the name.
Love it. Yep. Chris? How about you?
I mean, it's really, like what Kelly said, like there's no limits to our training, the no limits to like where we travel and places we can go. There's, some shops are like very limited to, we only do things in the Caribbean. And our whole goal was like, hey, we want to travel the world. So it's taken us all over the world. Scuba's definitely taken us past what maybe some people would say is their limits. I mean, we've been diving in Egypt and diving in some pretty cool places, very remote places in Mexico. So there is legit no limits to what scuba can do for you. And that's kind of where that name comes from.
Yeah, good for you guys. You get to travel around the world. That's awesome. Anytime you get to do that, that's a great thing. And how did you end up in Arizona? Why Arizona?
So surprisingly, I moved to Arizona at the time because of an ex-girlfriend. She's coming to ASU. And there was an opportunity to work in the dive shop and kind of feel it out and see how things worked.
Good idea.
Yeah. And so I came out here and I started working out at the dive shop. And then, surprisingly, we certify a large amount of divers, more than I did ever in California. And so when I met Kelly, she was an Arizona native, and I kind of just stayed here because of her and the shop.
Cool.
I did that. Sorry.
Nice job, Kelly. Good for you. It seems like a good spot, like you guys were saying. I mean, it's kind of captive audience, right? You got to go do something because there's not much to do right there, and it's so bloody hot. So that's great.
Yeah. And it's fun because it's a surprisingly vibrant and large community of divers. You wouldn't really expect it being in the desert, but there's there's a ton of us here, and there's a ton of us that do it and, do it as a lifestyle. There's a ton of us that do it, 2 or 3 big trips a year. So there's a lot of opportunity here, which I was surprised about. I mean, growing up here in the desert, I only stumbled onto scuba because my son was looking for some resources for marine biology.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, I'm in the desert, so I don't really know what to give you for that. But
Right.
looking at research and stuff, scuba was a common protocol there. So started looking into shops and found No Limits as a customer. And that blossomed from there, really.
Mm-hmm. And you guys bought the store from a previous owner?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to go. Right? You kind of have a built-in clientele, and it's, keep it running and put your spin.
Yeah.
And it's good. I mean, it's us and we have 2 partners that we're all friends. Makes it very easy, very simple. And, we've been doing it together as a partnership for 7 years, and the store's been in business. This is now year 11. So
wow.
It's good. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, we get the question all the time, like how much could you really do in Arizona? Why are you diving in Arizona? But really the thing is here, Arizona and Colorado compete typically year over year for who certifies the most amount of divers. And, the thing is in both states, we're both landlocked states, and you'd think, oh, probably a beach state would do more. But the reality is we're both very outdoor states.
Right.
And in Arizona, when the heat gets to be too miserable, everybody wants to go travel somewhere where it's just as hot, but on the water. Mm-hmm. So we wind up certifying a lot of people who go on a vacation somewhere and go hang out in the Caribbean. And then in Colorado, they have the opposite effect. Theirs is when they're over the snow and they're done skiing for the season, they want to go somewhere tropical and warm. And so they wind up going somewhere and these are both states where, for the most part, people can live pretty comfortably. They've got disposable income. You can work a pretty normal 9-to-5 gig. Whereas when I left California, people were like, oh, that's nuts. There's no way you're going to certify and you're going to be working as much as you are here. But the reality is, if you're not making a decent amount of money in California, especially Southern California, you're really just living to survive. You're
living for your house payment in California.
Yeah, exactly. Or
house
rent.
Payment, car payment, or rent, whatever it is. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody has money to do fun things and go do that. So that's where, Arizona, while it seems really silly, it is a place where you can get scuba certified. There's a big initial cost to it. You're paying for quite a bit of money for the instructional side and the gear side of it. And so, you don't have disposable income like that when you're just trying to pay your rent every month.
Yeah, right. What is like a basic class to get started? What's the cost of that?
Yeah, so basic class is $525 for the certification process, and that's about 24 hours with your instructor going over the pool work and then going out to the lake. And then on top of that, before you start even all of that, there's a 10 to 12 hours of online homework as well. So, at the end of the time, like you said, you spend about 24 hours with an instructor, and then you have about 10 to 12 hours of homework that you've done.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And you're right. Arizona and Colorado are both, I bet they're probably 2 of the most active states population-wise in the country. I mean, whether it's skiing or hiking or biking or diving or whatever it is, everybody there does a lot of things. Every time I've been to Arizona, Colorado, I meet more people that do outdoor stuff than here in California or maybe Utah. I don't know, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Very outdoor driven for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and I think it's different too, like where you're at in northern or central, it's a little bit, I think people are more driven to do outdoor activities up there.
Yeah.
Versus someone who's living in the hustle and bustle of LA or Orange County area.
Yeah. That's why everybody lives in Bishop. I mean, there's super active, whether they hike, hunt, bike, fish, climb, ski, and it's year round. There's stuff to do. It gets a little hot in the summer, but you can go into the high country and beat the heat. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So where do you guys find your instructors?
Yeah, so oftentimes it's our students that start from open water certification. So I'm like a perfect example of that. They just fall in love with the sport and then decide, hey, they want to make this as part of their life.
Yeah.
So they end up training all the way through their professional certification and then stay on as our scuba instructional staff and become part of our family. So we have a really great, amazing, group of folks that work for us, and they live and breathe scuba as their fun time jobs and hobbies on the weekends. And it's a really great community that's kind of stemmed from a lot of the times the students that are just walking in the door looking to experience something new.
That's perfect. And what kind of training do you put them through? Got to be pretty rigorous, I would think.
Yeah. So the instructors, they go through quite a lot of training to become the status of an instructor. So really, like when you start off, your first thing is open water scuba diver. And that's, like I said, 24 hours with an instructor, and then, some online work. And then there's all these different things you do between that. So you have like your core courses and some specialties. And to become a professional, the first part of that is you become a dive master. So that this is where you kind of get the foundational skills to become a professional. And they spend somewhere between 6 months to a year learning how to kind of improve their own skills, problem solve, and then work with the students. And so when they finish, they're an assistant to the instructor. So after they complete their dive master training and they work for a dive master as a bit, then they can enter the instructor development course. And that one is about a 2-month long process. And all the skills and the knowledge that's built in the DM program has prepared them to enter into the program where they learn how to teach students. And then at this point, they're kind of taking responsibility for the students that they're teaching. So prior to that, the instructor was teaching and they were assisting. Now they're in charge of it. And at the end of that 2-month process, the candidates go through an instructor exam with an examiner from the training agency. So we train with an agency called PADI, who's very they're based out in California.
Yep.
And so they have somebody that they send out here from PADI headquarters, and then they do the actual exam with all the candidates to make sure that they teach to the standards. So for most people that are starting on that path of like, I just got certified and I think I want to become an instructor one day, most of those people spend about 2 years training to get to that point.
Wow.
And rack up a couple hundred dives to really get to that.
That's impressive. And so most of them come from your courses, and are most of them local, or do people travel to take your courses and then decide they want to become an instructor?
For us, most of them are local. I mean, there's a ton of, I'll say like more resort towns or locations where people do travel, and they're more known for kind of a location to go and do this training in a more intense and a more accelerated way. But for most of us in this industry, this is like our side hustle or our side gig or, our side passion. So most of the local instructional staff here, do it over the course of the 2 years that Chris was kind of describing.
That makes sense. Yeah. And you guys have a lot of specialty courses. I love that. That's pretty cool. Did that come from just the locations where you dive, or where'd you get that idea? I love that idea.
Yeah. So Chris mentioned, scuba is kind of overseen by a regulatory body. They set the foundational standards for, all the training agencies that adhere to it. So our shop is affiliated with what I would say is probably arguably the most recognized agency and probably has the most market share across the globe, and that's PADI. So PADI sets those standards and training curriculum, and then they actually include some specialties that are geared towards, specific interests for people, environmental factors, or even things around like adaptive techniques for folks that maybe can't do some of the more straightforward approaches to diving. And Chris, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When you kind of like look at the specialty courses, or really any of those like I was talking about, you start as an open water. And when I talk about, becoming an open water diver, and people ask me like, well, what is that course? It's, it's our introduction to the underwater world. And the reality is we're teaching you how not to kill yourself underwater, how to survive. That's really what we're doing. Yeah. So you want to know how to live. I mean, it's definitely not a place that we, are naturally born.
Yeah, can't breathe. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we teach people in that first step there. And then once you know how to dive, then you just start peppering in some additional courses so that you have additional skills for your toolbox. So, in the first one, you learn how to dive. The second one, you're kind of learning more skills. You already know how to dive. Now let's add in navigational skills, or let's add in diving a little bit deeper, or let's add in, some additional things, how to search for something underwater. So all of these specialties all just kind of get peppered in throughout your training as you advance in the system, to that point of which you get to what we call the rescue class. And from there, it's, do you want to, once you've gone through the rescue class, do you want to go through the professional side? Because at this point, you're ready to start your professional journey, or do you want to continue to learn more specialty courses? Like, do you want to know how to dive inside of a wreck or a cave or something like that? So cool. That's where they all kind of come from. And PADI is the one who creates the majority of the specialties. We have some that we've created in our time frame, but PADI is the one who creates the majority of them.
Gotcha. Yeah,
and environmental factors play like a big role there. Like, obviously ice diving is not happening in Arizona, or, some of the other things that are more like localized. We don't have cave systems here either that are diveable. So,
right.
Every place is going to have like their kind of sweet spot for the things that they hone in on those specialties as well.
That's pretty cool. I had a guy who's now an off-road driving instructor, Bob Wohlers. Do you know that name? He was a PADI instructor, or I think he was one of the guys that helped create the PADI curriculum way back in the day.
That's awesome.
He's in Southern California now, and he teaches people how to drive their vehicles out in the desert and, off-roading. Pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Interesting too, yeah. Think organic groceries are too expensive? So does Thrive Market. They guarantee savings on healthy groceries and home essentials delivered. How? It's easy. They work directly with the best organic brands, so you get the highest quality products without the big retail markups. Shop everything from pantry essentials to sustainable meat and food to non-toxic cleaning supplies. And get 30% off your first order and a free gift when you join Thrive Market. Go to ricksays.com/Thrive Market and get your membership today. That's ricksays.com/Thrive Market. Now back to the show. So I guess, are any courses more popular than others, or do people kind of just follow the path through all the curriculum that you have, depending on how into it they are?
Yeah, they're definitely, they are, the path is kind of the more common route.
That kind of drives the bus, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You always start with the open water, so learning how to dive, and then you get into the advanced open water. And then from there, like things like dry suit or deep diving kind of come into play. But for the most part, you kind of follow like a little bit of a path. Mm-hmm. And we've created a really good structure at our shop where we can kind of talk people through, like, here's what we recommend doing based on what your goal is. Mm-hmm. Is your goal to become an instructor one day, or is your goal to just go and dive the world and you want to have all the skills necessary to go dive the world? So, based on your path and your goal, we can create a custom plan for kind of each and every one of the divers to say, this is what we would recommend going forward.
That makes sense. Yeah. And have you kind of have to offer travel, I guess. You probably have offered that from the beginning because of where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. So travel's always been something we've been focused on. The reality is nobody gets certified to dive at Lake Pleasant. It's a lake in the middle of the desert.
Right.
But we
surprisingly, right?
Yeah, pretty basic.
Yeah. So, the whole goal has always been to take people to exotic destinations and really show them what lies underwater. So, we've been fortunate and lucky that we really truly have traveled the world. Kelly and I get to do usually 2 big trips with clients twice a year.
Awesome.
With some California stuff sprinkled in throughout the year. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we've dove in, World War II wrecks in Egypt. We've been diving in, some of the cenotes down in Mexico and seen Mayan remains from, thousands and thousands of years ago. So cool. It's a pretty cool thing that's taken us all over the world, and it's something that we want to share with people.
Yeah, and I think that travel is an amazing way to keep people, like that scuba bug, going for people and really connect people. Like, it is a community. We have a group of people that have been traveling with us for years now, and they're truly our scuba family.
Mm-hmm.
they're involved in our lives in a different way than any other kind of sport.
Yeah, I bet they're good friends. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
for sure.
And we have a ton of stories that, people have created lifelong friendships and relationships as a result of, going on those trips together and, exploring fun and exotic places.
Yeah, that's the other reason why we do all this outdoor stuff, right? It's fun to hang out with people. Yeah. Do you have a success story of someone who started with no skills and is now a proficient diver? You probably have a bunch of them, actually.
Yeah.
We do have a bunch of them. But
there's one that stands out of someone who was particularly maybe scared or challenging or something. Yeah. Or maybe I have a buddy who's kind of, I shouldn't say this, but some people are more coordinated than others. So somebody that had to no, put that in your mouth. Keep that in your mouth.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, but I mean, yeah, that happens. Yeah, I think every weekend we have a success story, where you watch somebody go from like you're scared or keep that in your mouth. You kind of need it to breathe.
Right. They want to say something to you. They want to look at that. They want to take that out and holler at you. Whoa, no. That's great.
It's definitely something, every weekend there's a success story. And for the majority of our students, and that the reality is Kelly is the definition of a success story in scuba, hands down.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So she came to us as a customer with her son, and they were probably some of the most challenging students that we'd had. And so it was like, we do our pool session over, 2 days in the pool, 5 hours each day. And I think Kelly came back to the pool like 5 times just to focus.
It was 5 times. It might have been 4.
There's only 3. Come on now. Quit exaggerating.
Just to focus on skills and get things, kind of hone things in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so
she was dedicated. She was committed. She wanted to get it right.
She was absolutely dedicated for sure.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of being a part of the pool portion and helping her, but I wasn't really the instructor during that time, but I was her instructor when we went out and did her first dive together. And immediately after the first dive, while her kid was crying on the line because he had salt water in his mouth, Kelly was enamored right out of the gate. You could tell she was already loving it. And she really followed that path of hey, I want to make this my life. And so, she was definitely she's my success story for sure. She went from a pretty not so great diver to now she's a instructor. Her and I share the same, credentials at this point.
Yeah.
She's been diving for less than half the time I have. And so she's definitely that for me, the success story.
So how about your son? Is he still diving?
Yeah, he still dives with us. So he comes out with us on the big trips, once or twice a year. I would say he's more in the recreational realm, and he's happy to just be in that recreational realm. Mm-hmm. Whereas, for me, Chris kind of described it. I fell in love with it, even though I wasn't a natural right out of the gate. Yeah. But I think that just that is the story of you can start off with something. I mean, we're not meant to breathe underwater, and it's totally unnatural for us to have that desire or have that perspective. And my family was not water. We weren't water people. We live in the desert.
Right. Yeah, right. You live in the desert, right?
Yeah. And so, some of those things, the ocean was terrifying for me. Even just, putting my head and my face in water was a challenge for me.
Wow.
So I think it just shows with determination and just kind of the perspective of literally I'm doing this to look at fish and enjoy the underwater realm. That should just be, the perspective of anybody can do it. If I can do it, and I started off with these struggles and have gotten to where I am now in my professional career.
Yeah, that's impressive. Scuba. And that's good testimonial to you and the instruction too, right? I mean, you stuck with it.
And it's great too, because as an instructor now I can see the same fears that I had completed it. And I can relate with people going through the process, and it makes me a better instructor, honestly, because I've had my own hurdles and challenges to overcome.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome. Good for you guys. What other outdoor activities do you guys participate in?
Yeah, so in the spring and the summer, we do hike quite a bit. We camp with our dogs. So we go up to the Mogollon Rim, which is North Arizona, and we go camp up there with them quite a bit. And then during the winter time, I do a lot of snowboarding. So, again, surprisingly, people don't think you can snowboard in Arizona. We have 2 resorts here.
You can. I've been to both. Yeah.
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 Kelly, how about you?
Yeah, same for me. I've been snowboarding since I was 18, and obviously growing up here in Arizona, hiking. I've done the Grand Canyon a few times, and there's lots of really great places in the valley when it's nice and cool. We live really close to some hiking trails, and then going up to the northern part of Arizona is just gorgeous. I think some folks don't realize how kind of geographically diverse Arizona can be. So you can be, 2 hours up north and be in cooler, higher elevations, doing some really fun outdoor hiking stuff, even when it's sweltering hot here in the valley. So that's been my lifestyle before I even was introduced to scuba. It was a lot of snowboarding and hiking and camping with my family.
There's a lot of great outdoor stuff in Arizona. I've done a lot of photography out there. It's some beautiful places.
Yeah. It's super diverse. You go down south and it's totally different from going up, north on the western part versus going to the eastern part and in the northern area. It's totally different. So encourage people, if you haven't experienced it, come and check it out.
Check it out. It's a beautiful state. Exactly. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into scuba? Obviously, go to your school.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing is just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear it all the time. We get a lot of people that come in like, oh, I wish I would have done this when I was younger. Do it. Take the leap and start it now. The thing that we find is we get a lot of people that come in like, well, I wish I did it when I was younger, or I'm not comfortable. I don't know if I'm going to like it. And a lot of shops, not just ours, but a lot of shops offer what's called a Discover Scuba or Try Dive. Mm-hmm. And it's really just to see if you'll like it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So instead of spending hundreds of dollars and, countless hours preparing for your training, you can spend one day and less than $50 usually to try it out and just experience the joy of being weightless underwater. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of the try dives at our shop. And I would say probably 90% of those people that tell me they don't think they're going to like it, they wind up loving it. So, it's something that we hear it time and time again. Oh, I'm claustrophobic. Whatever the excuse is, just give it a shot. If it's something that you've ever thought of or pondered, just do it.
Yeah, try it. Yeah. Kelly, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, as an example of that person who was not into the idea of scuba diving, doing a try dive was cathartic. I had a high stress job and I got underwater and I realized, guess what? Nobody can talk to me. This is amazing.
Silence. That's cool.
Yeah, silence and being weightless and just being in your own head and just having kind of reflective moments under the water. It's truly amazing. And it's opened up a whole new world for me, especially. And it's transformed my life in the best possible way. So to Chris's point, if you're thinking about it, considering it, or if it's not something that you've never considered, just try it. Just do it.
$50. Yeah. What the heck? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. I'm probably going to ask the 2 hardest questions I ask on my podcast. They're the next 2. The first one is, what is your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Okay, I really think that a good multi-tool, like a Leatherman's tool, is
perfect.
The top banger there. Even in scuba, it's just so useful and so purposeful.
I bet, because you guys have a lot of equipment that you have to adjust and tighten up and loosen up and
all the time. Every weekend, it's there's a toolbox that comes with me, and that's my go-to.
Yeah, awesome. Chris, how about you?
I'm kind of split. I'll go between 2. One's not really a camping or an outdoor gear purchase, but the black and yellow Costco bins.
Oh, yeah. I think those are definitely an outdoor purchase. I have a bunch. I don't have Costco ones, but I have a bunch of those plastic bins.
Those things work. We use them for everything.
Yeah.
Scuba, but not just scuba, right? All of our camping stuff.
Oh, your camping stuff? Exactly.
I think those are probably one of my favorite outdoor purchases.
That's a great one. Nobody's mentioned that one. I love that.
because it goes across everything. All my snowboard stuff's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably for me my favorite outdoor gear purchase.
That's a good one. Yep. I've got the same thing. Camera gear, cook gear, sleep gear, everything.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Everything.
Yeah. And I bet you guys read a lot with all the travel you do. Do you have any favorite books?
So I don't read as much as I should. The majority of my reading is industry publications and magazines and things like that, trying to keep up with trends or like the new gear that's coming out.
Yep.
Although I was just inspired and I picked up The Tattooist of Auschwitz based on the show that just came out.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, the show was really good, and I can only imagine that the book is better. So
where was the show? Was it on Netflix or something?
Peacock.
Peacock,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Peacock. It was a pretty interesting show, and like how it's all documented, and it's really just about the tattooist of Auschwitz and like how he fell in love with this girl and the trials and tribulations that they went through.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, the way that the show played it was obviously that was a pretty shitty time in history.
Yeah.
So I think the book will probably be just as good, or if not better.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll look for that to watch it too. Yeah. Kelly, how about you? You got a favorite book?
Yeah, I bounce between like biographies and fiction. So recently I kind of encountered some of Nick Offerman's books, the Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec is a really great one. It's an older one of his, but Paddle Your Own Canoe. It's just like a really solid comedic approach to living a meaningful life.
Love that.
And then my all-time favorite is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. So I reread that one every few years.
Wow. Okay.
It's just an epic tale that, just reminds me that the journey is more important and not to focus so much on the getting to the end of a thing. It's a pretty solid series, but it is an investment in time if you're going to read it.
I'll check that out. That sounds like a good one. Yeah, the journey is always, I think you look back on it and oftentimes the destination was amazing, but the journey to get there was the best part because of all the things that happened, right?
Yeah, I think especially for people that are like career driven, it's hard to like reflect and stop focusing on, the goals or the aspirations we have sometimes and just kind of enjoy the ride a little bit.
That's true. Yeah. As we wrap up, is there anything else you want to ask of our audience or say to our audience?
I think I would just kind of lean back into hey, if you've been considering scuba or if you want to learn more about it, like there's a ton of great resources. There's a ton of shops like our own. Obviously if you're not local to Arizona, look in your state, look in your location. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of great opportunities to try it, experience it, and see if it's right for you. I think it just broadens your perspective about, if you're already into outdoor activities and nature and those things, it's a whole new world. So I would just encourage your listeners to give it a shot, give it a try.
Seems like a natural. Yep. Chris, anything to add to that?
Really just the same thing. I think anybody who's in the outdoor space is probably that market for scuba.
Yeah.
You're on top of the world. Let's go under the water at this point.
Right.
So I think, like Kelly said, any of your listeners really would probably benefit from it, would probably like it. And there are so many scuba shops across the country. You could look at any landlocked state and there's going to be at least one. So, if you're interested in it, like I said earlier, just do it.
Yeah, just try it out. Yep. No, that's good advice. Yep. And where can people find you if they'd like to follow up?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Facebook. So if you look on Instagram or Facebook just under No Limits Scuba, you can find us there. And then, if you want to follow up with Chris or I, we're super easy to reach. It's Chris at No Limits Scuba or Kelly at No Limits Scuba. We'd be happy to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Well, we'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes. Well, it's been great catching up with you. Hopefully we'll see you again at some show, or I should come out there and take some scuba lessons. I've always had that on my list, but I've never had the time. One of those guys.
Come on down.
Yeah, I need to do that. I'll make that.
Say you know a guy now, Rick. So
that's right. I know a guy. I know some people. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Rick.
Hey, before we wrap, I've got a special message for you. I know some of you have a podcast rolling around your brain, or already have a podcast you'd like to polish up a bit. I'm excited to announce that I'm partnering with Tracy DeFord's Stephanie Euler and the Produce Your Podcast team to get it out of your head and into your followers' ears. Tracy and her team have helped me grow and monetize my show, and podcasters trust them because they deliver. Go to ricksays.com/PYP to get all the details. Let's get your show created, produced, and on the air today. Go to ricksays.com/PYP and get all the deets, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week, and thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Says.